Admiral Zixoth sat in his command chair, on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Times Dominion **. The massive ship hung in space above the capital world of Veltara Prime. Through the viewing screen, he could see the endless stream of ships coming and going from the planet below. Trade vessels, military ships, and passenger transports moved like insects around the glowing world. The Veltar Empire controlled 10,000 star systems. 50 different alien species bowed to imperial rule. Some had joined willingly for protection and trade benefits. Others had been forced to submit after their worlds were conquered. The empire had been expanding for over 3,000 years, and Admiral Zixoth had served it for most of his long life. His aide, Lieutenant Quinn, approached with a datapad in his four-fingered hands. Quinn was young for a Veltar. His green skin still bright, and his head tentacles short. He moved with the nervous energy of someone eager to please his superiors. "Admiral, the weekly reports from the Outer Rim sectors," Quinn said, offering the pad. Zixoth took the device without looking up from his own work. These reports were always the same. The Outer Rim was quiet. A few pirate raids here and there. Some minor disputes between colony worlds. Nothing that required the attention of the main fleet. He scrolled through the data quickly. Sector 7 reported increased mining output. Sector 12 had dealt with a small rebellion on a farming world. Sector 15 requested additional patrol ships to handle smugglers. All normal problems with normal solutions. Then he reached the report from Sector 23, the furthest edge of Imperial space. His aide had marked it with a low priority tag, and Zixoth could see why. The sector contained mostly empty space and a few unimportant star systems. One of those systems was called Sol, home to a primitive species called humans. The report was brief. Human space traffic remained minimal. Their largest ships were small cargo vessels, and a handful of military ships that barely qualified as proper warships. The humans had achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago, making them newcomers to galactic civilization. Their technology was centuries behind Imperial standards. Zixoth remembered when the humans first left their home system. Imperial scouts had investigated them and filed a simple report. Not a threat, minimal resources, no valuable technology. The humans controlled only their single star system and had no expansion plans that concerned the Empire. The most interesting thing about humans was their cultural exports. They made music that some aliens found appealing, and their primitive art sold well in novelty markets across the Empire. Human entertainment was considered charming in its simplicity. Nothing more. "Sir," Lieutenant Quinn said, "there is one item in the Sector 23 report that requires a response." Zixoth looked up from the pad. "What kind of response?" "The humans have requested a trade meeting. They want to discuss expanding commerce between their system and Imperial space. The sector commander is asking for instructions." The Admiral almost smiled. Human trade requests were rare, and usually involved them offering to sell more of their simple art or music in exchange for basic technology. The Empire sometimes agreed to these deals, more out of amusement than any real need for what humans offered. "Where do they want to meet?" he asked. "The neutral zone near the Proxima station. Standard diplomatic meeting point." Zixoth nodded. Proxima Station was an old trading post that served as a neutral meeting ground for minor species who wanted to deal with the Empire. It was far enough from Imperial core worlds that any problems would be contained, but close enough that Imperial ships could respond quickly if needed. Assign Sub-Commander Krell to handle it, the Admiral decided. Give him 3 light cruisers for escort. Standard procedure for minor species negotiations. Quinn made a note on his own data pad. "Yes, sir." "Should I tell him to expect any particular issues?" "With humans?" Zixoth shook his head. "They are harmless. Krell can consider this a training exercise for his junior officers. Maybe the humans will offer him some of their music as payment for wasting his time." The lieutenant smiled at that. Everyone in the fleet had heard stories about human attempts at diplomacy. They were polite but naive, often offering gifts that had no real value to advanced civilizations. Their delegates usually arrived in converted cargo ships that looked like they might fall apart if someone sneezed on them. "When do the humans want to meet?" Zixoth asked. Next week, sir. They said they need time to prepare their delegation. Very well. Tell Krell to be patient with them. Humans move slowly, and their technology is unreliable. If their ship breaks down on the way to the meeting, he might have to wait an extra day or two. Quinn nodded and turned to leave, but the Admiral called him back. Lieutenant, make sure Krell understands this is just a routine contact with a minor species. No need for aggressive postures or threatening behavior. The humans are not enemies, just irrelevant neighbors. Understood, sir. I will make that clear in the orders. After Quinn left, Zixoth returned to his real work. The Empire was dealing with much more serious issues than human trade requests. A rebellion was growing in the Andorian sector. Pirates were becoming bolder near the Centauri trade routes. 3 Imperial colonies had reported strange energy readings that might indicate the presence of a previously unknown alien species. These were the problems that mattered. These were the challenges that required the attention of experienced military commanders. Human trade meetings were the kind of simple task that could be safely given to younger officers who needed practice with diplomatic procedures. Zixoth dismissed the humans from his thoughts and focused on the real business of running a galactic empire. In a few days, Sub-Commander Krell would meet with the human delegation. They would exchange some meaningless pleasantries, maybe sign a minor trade agreement, and that would be the end of it. The Admiral had no way of knowing that this simple meeting would change everything the Empire thought it knew about their quiet, harmless neighbors from the Sol system. Sub-Commander Krell stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Times Imperial Honor *. 2 smaller cruisers, the Times Swift Strike Times and Times Void Cutter *, flew in formation beside his ship. All 3 vessels were light cruisers, fast and well-armed ships that could handle most problems in the Outer Rim sectors. Krell was proud to command this small task force. At only 200 years old, he was young for a Veltar officer to have his own command. This mission would be good practice for his crew, and a chance to show Admiral Zixoth that he could handle responsibility. The 3 ships had been traveling for 2 days toward Proxima Station. The journey had been smooth and quiet, exactly what Krell expected for a meeting with humans. He had read all the files about the species during the trip. They were new to space travel, limited to their home system, and completely harmless to the Empire. Sub-Commander, called Navigation Officer Tex from his station. We will reach the meeting coordinates in 30 minutes. Good. Krell replied. Begin scanning for the human vessel. They should already be there waiting for us. The humans had requested the meeting for this exact time and place. Krell expected to find a single ship, probably converted from a cargo hauler or passenger transport. Human diplomatic vessels were known for being slow, unreliable, and poorly armed. This would be an easy first contact mission. Sir, the ship's sensor operator, Ensign Vex, spoke up from her position. I am not detecting any ships at the meeting point. Krell frowned. Are you certain? Check again. Yes, sir. I am scanning the entire area around Proxima Station. No human ships detected. Maybe the humans were running late. Krell had read that their ships often had mechanical problems during long trips. Their technology was primitive compared to Imperial standards, so delays were common. We will wait, Krell decided. Bring us to a standard holding pattern near the station. Alert me when the humans arrive. The 3 Imperial ships took position near Proxima Station. The old trading post was mostly automated, with only a small crew to maintain the basic facilities. It was a perfect place for meetings between the Empire and minor species who were not important enough for formal diplomatic contact. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Still no sign of human ships, sir, Ensign Vex said. Maybe their ship broke down. Should we send a search patrol? Before Krell could answer, the sensor board began beeping rapidly. Vex stared at her readings with confusion. Sub-Commander, I am detecting a massive energy signature approaching our position. It is coming out of hyperspace. Krell moved to look over her shoulder at the sensor display. The energy readings were enormous, far larger than anything a human ship should produce. Are you certain those readings are correct? Check your equipment. I have checked, sir. All systems are working properly. The signature is, it is larger than anything in our database. The beeping became more urgent. On the main viewing screen, space began to shimmer and distort. Something huge was coming out of hyperspace. "Alert the other ships," Krell ordered. "Raise shields and charge weapons. This might not be humans." The distortion in space grew larger. Whatever was coming through was massive, beyond anything Krell had ever seen. Even Imperial dreadnoughts, the largest ships in the fleet, did not create energy signatures this big. Then the ship appeared. Krell felt his breath catch in his throat. The vessel that emerged from hyperspace was enormous. It was easily 3 times the size of the largest Imperial battleship. Its hull was sleek and dark, covered with strange markings that glowed with soft light. The design was unlike anything in Imperial databases. "Sir," Vex whispered, "the energy readings from that ship, they are impossible. Our sensors say it has power output equal to an entire fleet of Imperial ships." "That cannot be right," Krell said, but his voice sounded weak even to himself. "Run a full analysis. Check everything twice." The massive ship hung in space like a dark mountain. Its weapons were not visible, but sensor readings showed energy patterns that suggested weapon systems far beyond Imperial technology. The ship's shields were active and appeared to be many times stronger than what Imperial science could produce. "Sub-Commander," the communications officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel." "Put it through," Krell ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. The main screen changed to show the bridge of the alien ship. A human sat in the captain's chair. She was a middle-aged woman with dark hair and calm eyes. Behind her, other humans worked at control stations that looked like they came from a dream of the future. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship × Prometheus *", the woman said with a smile. "We apologize for being late." Hyperspace traffic was heavy near the outer colonies. Krell stared at the screen. This was impossible. The ship behind the human woman was clearly of human design, but it was larger and more advanced than anything humans should be able to build. The technology visible on their bridge was centuries ahead of what Imperial intelligence said humans possessed. I am Sub-Commander Krell of the Imperial Fleet," he managed to say. Are you here for the trade meeting?" "Yes, of course," Captain Chen replied. "I hope our ship size does not alarm you. The Prometheus is one of our smaller exploration vessels, but we know other species sometimes find human ships intimidating." "Smaller exploration vessels?" Krell's mind reeled. If this giant ship was small for humans, what did their real warships look like? "Captain Chen," Krell said carefully, "our records show that human ships are much smaller than your vessel. There seems to be some mistake in our intelligence files." The human woman looked puzzled. "Oh, I see the confusion. You have been monitoring our Earth system, correct? Earth builds traditional-style ships for cultural and historical reasons. The Prometheus was built at our Tau Ceti shipyards using current technology." "Current technology?" Krell felt a cold fear growing in his chest. "How many shipyards do humans operate?" "Oh, hundreds," Captain Chen said casually. "We have been expanding across the galaxy for quite some time. I thought the Empire knew about our colonies." Krell quickly cut the transmission and turned to his communications officer. "Send an emergency message to Admiral Zixoth immediately. Priority Alpha classification." "What should I tell him, sir?" Krell looked back at the massive human ship on the screen. "Tell him that everything we know about humans is wrong." Sub-Commander Krell stood on his bridge, staring at the massive human ship that hung in space before him. The Prometheus was 3 times larger than his flagship and radiated power that made his sensors scream impossible readings. Yet Captain Chen sat calmly on her bridge, smiling as if this was just another routine meeting. "Sir," his communications officer said, "the humans are requesting to begin standard diplomatic protocols." Krell tried to think. Everything about this situation was wrong. The Empire's files said humans were primitive newcomers to space. They were supposed to have small, weak ships and simple technology. Instead, he was facing a vessel that could probably destroy his entire task force without effort, but he was an Imperial officer. He had procedures to follow and orders to obey. Admiral Zixoth had made it clear that this was just a routine contact with a minor species. Maybe there was some explanation for this ship that did not change the basic situation. "Open a channel," he ordered. Captain Chen's face appeared on the main screen again. Behind her, Krell could see human crew members working at control stations that looked like they belonged in Imperial science fiction. The technology was clean, advanced, and completely beyond what humans should possess. "Captain Chen," Krell said, trying to sound authoritative, "I must inform you that your vessel does not match our records of human capabilities. Imperial regulations require that all unknown ship designs be inspected before diplomatic meetings can proceed." The human woman tilted her head slightly, as if confused. "I appreciate your concern, Sub-Commander, but the Times, Prometheus Times, is a standard exploration vessel in the Earth Commonwealth Fleet. Our diplomatic credentials were transmitted to Imperial space weeks ago." "That may be," Krell replied. "But your ship is far larger and more advanced than anything in our databases. For security reasons, I must insist that you allow an inspection team aboard your vessel." Captain Chen's expression did not change, but something in her eyes became cooler. "I am afraid that will not be possible. Sub-Commander, the Times Prometheus Times is a sovereign vessel of the Earth Commonwealth. We are here for a peaceful trade meeting, nothing more." Krell felt sweat forming on his skin. Imperial procedure was clear in situations like this. When dealing with unknown threats, Imperial forces were required to establish complete control before any negotiations could begin. If the humans refused inspection, they were automatically classified as hostile. "Captain Chen," he said firmly, "I am ordering you to submit to inspection. If you refuse, I will consider your vessel a threat to Imperial security." "Sub-Commander," the human woman said gently, "I would strongly advise against that course of action. We came here to discuss trade agreements. There is no need for threats or aggressive behavior. You are in Imperial space," Krell replied. "You will follow Imperial regulations or face the consequences." Captain Chen sighed, a sound that somehow made Krell more nervous than any threat would have. "Very well. But please understand that any hostile action against the Times Prometheus Times will be met with appropriate defensive measures." Krell cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "Target their engines. Fire a warning shot across their bow. Let them know we are serious." "Sir." "Weapons," Officer Drex said hesitantly. "Are you certain? That ship has massive shield readings. A warning shot might not have any effect." "Fire the shot," Krell ordered. "If their shields are strong, they will know it was just a warning." The Times Imperial Honor Times fired a single plasma bolt across the front of the human ship. The shot passed harmlessly in front of the Times Prometheus Times and dissipated into space. It was a standard Imperial warning that meant, submit or face real weapons fire. For a moment, nothing happened. The Times Prometheus Times hung silently in space. Then Captain Chen's voice came over the communication system. It was still calm, but now carried a note of sadness. "Sub-Commander, I warned you. That would be inadvisable." The human ship did not seem to move. There was no visible flash of weapons fire. No dramatic energy beams or missile launches. One moment Krell's 3 ships were intact and ready for battle. The next moment, all 3 ships were dying. The Times, Prometheus Times, had fired something. Krell's sensors had not detected the weapon launch, could not identify the type of energy used, and had no data on how the human ship had targeted 3 separate vessels simultaneously. But the results were impossible to deny. All 3 Imperial cruisers had been hit with surgical precision. Their engines were destroyed, their weapon systems were offline, and their shields had collapsed instantly. Life support was failing across all 3 ships. Emergency lights flashed red as damage reports flooded in from every department. "Sir," Ensign Vex shouted from her sensor station. "All primary systems are down. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. We are losing atmosphere. Weapons are completely offline," reported Weapons Officer Drex. "I cannot even tell what hit us. Our armor was cut through like it was made of paper." Krell grabbed his command chair as the bridge shook. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in dim red light. Around him, his crew worked frantically to save their ship. Through the chaos, he could hear similar emergency reports from the other two cruisers. "Sir," his communications officer called out. "The other ships are reporting the same damage. Captain Vorth on the Times Swift Strike Times says they have less than 10 minutes before complete life support failure." The human ship had disabled all 3 Imperial vessels in less than 1 second. Not destroyed them, Krell realized. Disabled them. The weapons had been precise enough to knock out all major systems, while leaving the crew compartments mostly intact. It had been a demonstration of power so complete that resistance was meaningless. "Sir," the communications officer said urgently, "Captain Chen is requesting to speak with you." "Put her through," Krell said weakly. The human woman appeared on the screen again. She looked genuinely sorry. "Sub-Commander, I am very sorry it came to this. We are detecting life support failures on your ships. Would you like us to assist with evacuation?" "What? What did you do to us?" Krell asked. "Standard defensive protocols," Captain Chen replied. "We disabled your vessel's primary systems to prevent further hostilities. Your crews are safe, but you will need to abandon ship soon." "This is impossible," Krell whispered. "Human ships cannot do this." Sub-Commander," Captain Chen said gently. "I think there has been a serious misunderstanding about human capabilities. We will gladly help evacuate your crews and arrange for rescue ships to pick you up." Krell looked around his dying ship. His weapons had been useless. His shields had been meaningless. 3 Imperial warships had been defeated by a single human vessel in less time than it took to blink. "Send an emergency transmission to Admiral Zixoth," he told his communications officer. "Tell him." Krell stopped, not sure what to say. How could he explain this? "Tell him that everything we know about humans is wrong," Krell finally said. "Tell him they have weapons that make our ships look like children's toys. Tell him that we fired on them first, and they could have destroyed us completely but chose not to." He paused, looking at the calm human captain on his screen. "And tell him that if this is what they call a small exploration ship, we do not want to see their warships." Admiral Zixoth was reviewing supply reports when the emergency transmission arrived. The red priority light flashed on his communication console, indicating an alpha-level message from the Outer Rim. He touched the control to accept the transmission, expecting a routine report about pirates or smuggling. Instead, he heard Sub-Commander Krell's voice, distorted by static and panic. "Admiral, this is Krell. My task force has been destroyed. All 3 ships disabled by a single human vessel. Their technology is impossible. They have weapons beyond anything in our databases. We fired first, sir. They could have killed us all but chose not to. Request immediate backup and—" The transmission cut off in a burst of static. Zixoth stared at the communication console. The message made no sense. 3 Imperial cruisers destroyed by humans? That was impossible. Human ships were barely capable of in-system defense. They had no weapons that could threaten even a single Imperial vessel, let alone 3. "Lieutenant Quinn," he called. His aide appeared quickly, moving with his usual nervous energy. "Yes, sir?" "Contact Sector 23 Command. Find out what happened to Sub-Commander Krell's task force. Something has gone wrong with their communications." "Right away, sir." While Quinn worked, Zixoth tried to make sense of the garbled message. Maybe Krell had encountered pirates using stolen Imperial technology, or perhaps another alien species had attacked during the meeting with humans. There had to be a reasonable explanation. 10 minutes later, Quinn returned with a pale face and shaking hands. "Sir, I have the full sensor records from Sub-Commander Krell's ships. You need to see this." Zixoth accepted the datapad and began reading. The initial readings showed 3 Imperial cruisers approaching a meeting point near Proxima Station. Normal energy signatures. Standard formation. Everything routine. Then the readings changed completely. A massive energy signature appeared on sensors, unlike anything in Imperial databases. The ship that emerged from hyperspace showed power output equal to an entire fleet of Imperial vessels. The hull configuration was unknown, but bore human identification codes. "This data must be corrupted," Zixoth said. "Run a full analysis. Check for equipment failure or sensor malfunction." "I already did, sir," Quinn replied nervously. "All equipment was functioning normally." "The readings are accurate." Zixoth continued reading. The record showed a brief communication exchange, followed by the Imperial ships firing a warning shot. Then the sensor readings became even more impossible. All 3 Imperial vessels were simultaneously hit by weapons that left no energy signature. Their systems were surgically destroyed in 0.3 seconds. "This cannot be real," the Admiral said. "Human ships do not have this kind of technology." "They cannot have this kind of technology." "Sir," Quinn said quietly. "There is more." He handed Zixoth another data pad. "Reports from border sectors across the rim. All filed within the last 2 hours." Zixoth read quickly, his confusion turning to growing alarm. Sector 19 reported contact with an unknown human vessel, larger than an Imperial battleship. Sector 31 had detected human ships using hyperspace technology that appeared to be generations ahead of Imperial systems. Sector 8 recorded human vessels with shield ratings that exceeded anything in the Imperial fleet. The reports kept coming. Human ships were appearing across the entire outer rim, all of them displaying impossible technology. They were not attacking Imperial forces, but they were clearly monitoring Imperial activities with sensors that could detect ships from incredible distances. "Get me the intelligence division," Zixoth ordered. "I want every file we have on humans reviewed immediately. Something is very wrong with our data." The Admiral spent the next hour in emergency conferences with intelligence analysts, fleet commanders, and government officials. The evidence was overwhelming and impossible to deny. Human technology was not primitive. It was far more advanced than Imperial science. Director of Intelligence Caxtel appeared on the main communication screen, her usual calm demeanor replaced by obvious worry. "Admiral, we have completed a preliminary analysis of all human-related intelligence. The conclusions are disturbing." "Tell me," Zixoth said. "We have been monitoring the Sol system for 50 years, Caxtel began. "During that time, we observed human ships with primitive technology, small cargo vessels, and limited military capability. We assumed this represented their entire civilization. And now? Now, we realize we were observing a single star system. The humans we were watching appear to be just one small part of a much larger civilization." Zixoth felt cold. "How much larger?" "Unknown, sir. But based on the ships appearing across our border, we estimate humans control hundreds of star systems, maybe thousands. Their real technology appears to be centuries ahead of our own." The Admiral sat in stunned silence. The Empire had been treating humans like primitive neighbors when they were actually a vast, technologically superior civilization. "Director," he said slowly, "what classification do you give to human military capability?" "That is the most disturbing part, sir," Caxtel replied. "Analysis of the intercepted human communications indicates that the ships we have encountered are not military vessels." "What do you mean?" "The ship that disabled Sub-Commander Krell's task force was identified as an exploration vessel. The massive ships appearing across our borders are labeled as colony transports, research ships, and civilian freighters. According to human terminology, these are non-military vessels." Zixoth felt the blood drain from his face. If human civilian ships could destroy Imperial warships without effort, what were their actual military vessels capable of? "Sir," Lieutenant Quinn interrupted, "we are receiving a priority message from the Imperial Council. They are calling an emergency session. All fleet commanders and intelligence directors are ordered to report to the capital immediately." "What is the nature of the emergency?" Zixoth asked. "Sir," Quinn said quietly, "the humans have sent a message to the Imperial government. They are requesting a formal meeting with our leadership." "What kind of meeting?" "The message said they want to discuss membership in something called the Terran Commonwealth. They mentioned that the Empire has been interesting neighbors, and they would like to formalize relations." Zixoth stared at his aide. Membership in a human organization? The humans were treating the mighty Veltar Empire like a small regional power that might be worthy of joining their civilization. Sir, Director Caxtel added from the communication screen, there is one more thing. We intercepted additional human communications during our analysis. They refer to our space as the local region and discuss whether we are ready for contact with what they call the main civilization. What does that mean? Zixoth asked, though he feared he already knew. Admiral, Caxtel said grimly, I do not think we have met the real human civilization yet. The ships we have seen, the technology that destroyed our vessels, the colonial fleets appearing across our borders. All of this appears to be what humans consider their frontier operations. The Admiral closed his eyes and tried to process what he was hearing. The Empire controlled 10,000 star systems and 50 species. They considered themselves the dominant power in this region of the galaxy. But now it appeared they were nothing more than a local government that had finally attracted the attention of a vastly superior civilization. Get me a ship, Zixoth said finally. I need to report to the Imperial Council. Immediately. Sir, Quinn asked nervously. What do we tell the fleet? Zixoth thought about the proud Imperial forces under his command. Ships and crews that had conquered dozens of worlds and enforced Imperial rule across thousands of systems. All of it was meaningless now. Tell them to avoid any contact with human vessels, he said. Under no circumstances are they to take any hostile action. We are no longer dealing with primitive neighbors. He paused, looking at the reports scattered across his desk. Reports that proved everything the Empire believed about its place in the galaxy was wrong. We are dealing with our new masters. Admiral Zixoth stood on the bridge of the Time's Eternal Dominance Asterisk, the most advanced battleship in the Imperial fleet. The massive vessel represented the absolute peak of Imperial technology and military power. Its shields could withstand the combined firepower of a dozen enemy ships. Its weapons could crack a planet's crust. Its armor was forged from the strongest materials known to Imperial science. None of that made him feel safer as he approached the meeting coordinates. Captain Chen had requested a face-to-face meeting with Imperial leadership. The request had been polite and professional, but there had been something in her tone that made it clear this was not really a request. It was more like a gentle order from someone who expected to be obeyed. The Imperial Council had spent 3 days arguing about how to respond. Some wanted to refuse and demand that humans come to Imperial space for negotiations. Others suggested attacking human ships before they became a greater threat. In the end, wisdom had prevailed. The humans had already demonstrated they could destroy Imperial vessels without effort. Starting a war with them would be suicide. Admiral, his sensor operator reported, we are detecting the human vessel approaching our position. Put it on screen, Zixoth ordered. The Times, Prometheus Times appeared on the viewing screen, and Zixoth felt his confidence drain away again. The human ship was enormous, dwarfing even his battleship. Worse, his sensors were detecting at least 6 other human vessels in the area. They had not been invited to bring escorts, but apparently humans did not travel alone in dangerous regions of space. Sir, the communications officer said, Captain Chen is requesting permission to transport aboard our ship. Transport? Zixoth had not realized humans had that technology. Imperial ships could transport people and materials short distances, but it was complex and dangerous. The fact that humans offered to transport directly to his ship suggested their technology was far more advanced than Imperial systems. Permission granted, he said. Have them transported to Conference Room 7. A few minutes later, Zixoth walked into the conference room with his senior officers. Captain Chen was already there, along with 2 other humans wearing similar uniforms. They looked completely at ease, as if they were visiting friends rather than meeting with the leadership of a galactic empire. Admiral Zixoth, Captain Chen said, rising from her chair and offering a human gesture of greeting. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. I know this situation has been confusing for your people. Captain Chen, Zixoth replied, trying to maintain his dignity. I must ask you to explain the discrepancy between our intelligence about human capabilities and what we have observed in recent days. The human woman smiled, and somehow that expression made Zixoth more nervous than any threat would have. Of course, Admiral, I think there has been a fundamental misunderstanding about human civilization. She activated a small device, and a holographic map appeared above the conference table. The map showed this region of the galaxy, with Imperial space clearly marked, but the map also showed something else. Hundreds of star systems marked with human symbols, spreading far beyond the borders of Imperial space. You have been monitoring our Earth system for 50 years, Admiral, Captain Chen said calmly. That was never our entire civilization. Zixoth stared at the map. The human colonies extended in all directions, far beyond anything Imperial scouts had discovered. This cannot be accurate. Oh, it is quite accurate, Captain Chen assured him. Earth is what you might call a cultural preserve. We maintain it as our traditional homeworld, keeping the old ways alive and preserving human history. The people living there use older technology and stay within the single star system because that is their choice. One of the other humans, a man with gray hair, spoke up. The real human civilization has been expanding across the galaxy for over 3,000 years, Admiral. We have colonies in hundreds of star systems and trade relationships with dozens of species. Zixoth felt dizzy. But our scouts would have detected such expansion. How could we have missed an entire galactic civilization? You did not miss us, Captain Chen said gently. We have been careful to avoid Imperial space out of respect for your territorial claims. We had no desire to interfere with your development or create conflicts with your government. You avoided us? Zixoth asked weakly. Yes, your empire controls what we consider a local region of space, a nice, stable area with an interesting collection of species. We decided it would be impolite to intrude without invitation. The Admiral looked at the holographic map again. Imperial space, which he had always thought of as vast and dominant, was just a small cluster of systems surrounded by human colonies. The Empire was not a galactic superpower. It was a local government that humans had been politely ignoring. The ships that disabled Sub-Commander Krell's vessels, Zixoth said slowly. What classification are they? The Times, Prometheus Times, is a deep space exploration vessel, Captain Chen replied, designed for long-range survey missions and first contact with unknown species. What you saw were our standard defensive systems. Standard defensive systems, Zixoth repeated. Yes. We do not build warships the way your people do, Admiral. Our exploration and transport vessels are equipped with defensive systems because space can be dangerous. Pirates, hostile wildlife, natural phenomena. Our ships need to protect themselves and their crews. The gray-haired human added. The vessels your people encountered across the border were colony transports, research ships, and trade freighters. Civilian ships. By our standards, Zixoth closed his eyes. Imperial warships had been helpless against human civilian vessels. What do your actual military ships look like? We rarely build dedicated military vessels, Captain Chen said. When conflicts arise, we typically convert civilian ships to military use. Add more weapons, stronger shields, additional armor. But honestly, Admiral, we have not faced a serious military threat in over 1,000 years. Why not? Zixoth asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Because most species recognize the benefits of joining the Terran Commonwealth rather than fighting us. Trade, technology exchange, mutual defense, shared resources. Cooperation is much more productive than conflict. The Admiral opened his eyes and looked at the human captain. Is that why you wanted this meeting? To demand our surrender? Surrender? Captain Chen looked genuinely surprised. No, Admiral. We wanted to offer your Empire membership in the Commonwealth. Zixoth stared at her. Membership? Yes. You have been interesting neighbors for many years. Your people have built a stable, functioning government across multiple star systems. You have managed to unite 50 different species under a single authority. That takes considerable skill and wisdom. The gray-haired human nodded. The Commonwealth values diversity and different approaches to governance. Your empire would add valuable perspectives to our organization. But, Captain Chen continued, We understand this is a significant decision. Membership would mean accepting Commonwealth laws and regulations. It would mean opening your borders to human ships and trade. It would mean acknowledging that you are part of a larger galactic civilization. What if we refuse? Zixoth asked. Then you refuse, Captain Chen said simply. We would respect your decision and continue to avoid your space. Though we would probably need to establish some formal borders and communication protocols. Now that we have made contact, it would be irresponsible to simply ignore each other. Zixoth looked around the conference room at his senior officers. They all had the same expression of shock and confusion that he felt. In the span of a week, they had gone from thinking humans were primitive neighbors to discovering they were a minor regional power in a galaxy dominated by human civilization. What are the benefits of membership? He asked. Access to Commonwealth technology, which is significantly more advanced than current Imperial systems. Free trade across Commonwealth space, which includes thousands of star systems. Mutual defense agreements, educational and cultural exchange programs, and representation in Commonwealth government. And the costs? You would need to adopt basic Commonwealth laws regarding individual rights and interspecies relations. You would need to open your borders to Commonwealth citizens. And you would need to contribute to Commonwealth defense and infrastructure projects. Zixoth thought about the choice before him. The Empire could try to remain independent, but they would be surrounded by a vastly superior civilization. They could continue as they were, but they would always know they were just a small, local government in someone else's galaxy. Or they could accept that the universe was much bigger than they had imagined and try to find their place in it. Captain Chen, he said finally, I will need to consult with the Imperial Council before making such a momentous decision. Of course, she replied. This is not a choice to be made quickly or lightly. Take all the time you need. She stood up, and the other humans followed. We will remain in the area for the next few days in case you have questions. And Admiral? There is no shame in being smaller than you thought. The galaxy is a very big place. What matters is what you choose to do with the knowledge you now have. After the humans had transported back to their ship, Zixoth sat alone in the conference room, staring at the holographic map. The empire he had served his entire life was still there, still real, still important to the 50 species that called it home, but now he knew it was just one small part of something much, much larger. The question was whether they were ready to be part of that larger galaxy, or whether they would choose to remain a small, isolated power on the edge of human space. Either way, nothing would ever be the same.